Today I want to talk a bit about neurodivergence. I'm inspired to make this video on behalf of, in a response to Ollie Sanvia's neurodivergence video. I can't entirely remember the title of it. It really got me thinking specifically around the nature of being neurodivergent and what it really means. And it's especially relevant to me being neurodivergent myself. Recently I was diagnosed with autism. Around 10 years ago, I got the diagnosis of sensory processing difficulties with autistic traits, which is basically a nice way of my therapist saying, yeah, you got autism, but you're young and we don't want to stress you out about that big label. When I was diagnosed with sensory processing difficulties, really the conversation around autism and neurodivergence began to really become mainstream. When I was in school, I did struggle with noise and overstimulation and adapting to the school environment, especially in year 7 when I was 11, 12. I got a lot of support and people were very aware of that. But still, I kind of wasn't fully satisfied with this label of sensory processing difficulties because it felt very surface level, and especially when the conversation of neurodivergence was starting to become much more mainstream, like it has done in the past 5 to 10 years, I really began to realise that this diagnosis that was originally put on me as sensory processing difficulties was autism. I could further, in a way, back this up for myself because I very much related to high-functioning autism. More on the high-functioning front is I can go about in day-to-day life and things are very straightforward. Once I've learned basic things and I know how to do things, I'm fine. Things may just take a bit longer to process for me, like certain complicated tasks or certain processes in doing things, for example. It's gone to a point recently where after more deeper struggles around neurodivergence and jobs and not being able to do certain jobs or not being able to do them properly or really struggling in certain work environments. But that's a little background into me. I think it will really help paint that picture to go more into what I'm talking about now. What Olivia said in the video was how in today's world the terms of neurodivergent and having neurodivergence have become so commonplace. However, that's become to the point where these words may become overly medicalized or psychiatric in use, and more specifically how many people are identifying with these things more, me included. But the danger potentially of really identifying and believing that whole experience to be fundamentally true in our world and society, that there is such a thing as normal and different, and how that could be problematic, that we do put these things into normal and not normal, and how a lot of this language still reinforces this, and this links to the medical system, the psychiatric system, the systems and practices of psychology that deem one kind of standard or brain or mind to be a regular, normal, functioning person, and someone who isn't, who is atypical and works in a different way that deviates from that norm. And this really points to what this view of normal means. What is normal? What is it? You may have a different view of this, or I think all 8 billion people on this planet will have a different idea or perception or image of what normal is. But if we're thinking of this in terms of neurodivergence and neurotypicalness, normal is neurotypical, right? It's the world in which we can go from A to B, do a 9 to 5, look after our kids, look after our house, go on a holiday now and again, work towards our goals, have hobbies, be able to do that all pretty much without fuss and without any sense of struggle, or even if it is hard, it's just, well, that's life, that's how it is. I feel this is very much rooted in the Western world, the capitalist kind of consumerist model of society, the world in which things are boom, 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 fast, 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 fast. We must work in order to have a comfortable life, and we must be settled with a good family, good group of people around us, and must not complain too much. We must get on with things, right? We must grind, graft, and have the perfect amount of rest in between. So that's neurotypical. That's the world in which this model of what is normal in our world is deemed to be. Then those who are neurodivergent struggle with that a bit more. They're a bit more a break in the system, right? They may be able to do that, but not quite at the same level as others. They may have, as I mentioned for myself, challenges with certain tasks or activities that need to be done in our world. They may hyperfixate on things that aren't considered to be normal. They, very much will struggle with social interaction and maybe say things that are not considered typical of those groups or those certain interactions in those groups of people. And yeah, this is very much what this model, which I feel Olivia was referring to in her video, is basically at the root of this almost binary, this very much idea of neurotypical in our world. Then for me, the question comes around, what if the normal was different? What if the world was a neurodivergent world, or suited to people with neurodivergence? Would the neurotypical people be considered neurodivergent? If you think of it that way, it's obviously quite a philosophical way of thinking about it. Then you start to realise, okay, normal is very relative, and thus, what is there one normal really? That's about it for now. I have filmed this without any plan, without any script, but yeah, thank you for hearing me ramble, and I may do a more updated version of this in the future. These are just my thoughts, and I really encourage you to watch Oli Samvia's video, which is very in-depth and very well researched, and I would say explains it far better than I do, but this is just my personal response that I felt I needed to share, as it's something that really means a lot to me and I want to look more into and have more conversation. Have a lovely day, have a lovely summer wherever you are. Stay well, stay hydrated, all that good stuff. And yes.